Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. Before I get into today's episode, just want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. I'm on my path to 2,000 subscribers, hoping to get there before the season starts. So if you guys are enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. So for today's video, I want to talk about a report that came out from Brian Windhorst stating that Jimmy Butler wants to stay with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler also mentioned that during training camp and during media day, that he intends to stay with this Miami Heat team. And he is now interested in perhaps seeking a new contract with the Miami Heat, which is interesting news. So, um, Jimmy Butler, wanted an extension this offseason, and we thought he was going to ask for that max extension by July 7th. And Pat Riley at the end of year press conference basically came out and said, hey, Jimmy hasn't been available, and we're going to take a wait and see approach. We don't need to give him this extension right now. We could wait until the beginning of next season or the end of next season to see how healthy Jimmy is, to see if Jimmy is still worthy of a max extension type of contract. And so Jimmy Butler, after that came out and said, that's fine. I don't need to sign a max extension with Miami or any other team at this point. I'm just going to play out my contract, which Jimmy Butler has 2 more seasons left on his contract. So he's under contract this season for, I think, $48 million. And then he has a player option next season for $52 million. And the assumption was he was going to play out this season in a contract year and play as best as he possibly can, play as many games as he possibly can, so he can earn that max contract versus an extension. So with a max, he's going to be looking for 3 to 4 years at least 50 million per year, which I think is kind of crazy at this point when Jimmy Butler just turned 35 years old. Jimmy Butler has never played more than 65 games for the Miami Heat. So he's always missing 20 plus games a season. He's missed over 100 games in the 5 seasons with the Miami Heat. And as you get older, obviously it's harder to recover. And his efficiency and his stats are going to go down and his effectiveness eventually because Father Time is undefeated. So it's a tough scenario where he wants to get that max, and it's going to be tough for Miami to provide that because they already are paying players currently like Terry Rozier, uh, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo, a lot of money. And so with the new CBA rules, you're only allowed to have 2 max guys. So does the Miami Heat want to continue paying Jimmy Butler as a max player along with Bam Adebayo for 3 more seasons, which would be 9 years together, where they haven't won a championship yet? Yes, they've gone to the finals multiple times, which is great, obviously, but ultimately they haven't won their goal, which is a championship. And that's what Jimmy Butler wants, is to win a championship, apparently. That's what he said. He wants to win games, play more games. He wants to be healthy. He wants to contribute this offseason. And so it seems like Jimmy Butler may be softening his stance about playing out the rest of his current contract before signing a new deal. So, on the latest episode of the Hoop Collective podcast, Brian Windhorst reported that Butler wants to be in Miami and has a goal of getting another contract from the Miami Heat. A few things on the Heat, Windhorst said. One, as far as I know, I think Jimmy Butler wants to be in Miami. His goal is to get another contract from the Heat. He also thinks he has a player option on his contract, which I think his intention is to probably waive and become a free agent, but he still has that out there. So, there seemed to be a disconnect, like I mentioned earlier before, between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat front office this offseason. And there was some animosity, it seemed like, when Jimmy Butler was out somewhere talking crap on the Celtics after the Celtics beat the Miami Heat, saying if I was out there, we would have definitely won. They would be home. And Heat President Pat Riley addressed this in a very blunt manner, basically saying, hey, if you're not on the court and you're not playing, you should keep your mouth shut. So basically, he was saying, all right, Jimmy, shut up. Like, we needed you. You weren't out there. You weren't available. So a trade rumor, started popping up, this offseason involving Jimmy Butler during the summer, where the Nets were linked or interested. The Warriors were probably interested as they just lost Klay Thompson, and they might need to go all in with Steph Curry and Draymond in the twilight of their career. Steph Curry still, in my opinion, a top 5 player in the NBA, so you don't want to waste these last few years of his absolute prime or end of his prime. So who knows? There was rumblings that Jimmy Butler might get traded to one of these teams because they had interest. But ultimately, that's not what is going to happen. It could happen, who knows? But right now, Jimmy is content with the Miami Heat. Again, he's owed, like I mentioned, 48.8 million this season, and that player option is for 52.4 million in 2025 and 2026. He is currently eligible to sign a 1-year 58.6 million extension that would keep his 2025-2026 option intact, or a 2-year 112.9 million extension that would void the player option in 2025. So the difficulty here with all this again is the Miami Heat salary space. Like the Heat are currently 1.2 million under the second apron this season, and 12.1 million under the second apron next season. And so you need to factor in that extension if we were to offer that 1-year deal, like I just mentioned, or that 2-year extension. That's going to affect the apron for the Miami Heat, and they don't want to be a second apron team because they're going to be completely penalized and not be able to build their team in case the build is not working. So even though I think Jimmy's still a great player, his age and his durability concerns are exactly the biggest things we need to worry about with Jimmy Butler. And the Miami Heat seem to be reluctant to give him a max deal. Like he just turned 35 on September 14th. And like I said earlier, he's missed 100 games in his first 5 seasons with the Miami. Like I don't expect him to be healthier as he gets older, but you never know. Like you never know. He could somehow find a formula where he could be effective out there, where we're not running the offense through Jimmy Butler necessarily, but or running it to Jimmy Butler. Like we just need him to be the focal point, one of our focal points. Like we need him to um, distribute, play make, obviously score for us, but we don't need to run the offense and build the offense around him, just him specifically. Butler, again, his averages were still good: 20.8 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 5 assists per game in his 60 starts last season. But his numbers are decreasing at the rim. His finishing at the rim percentages are down. His free throws were down last season, which are not good indications for an aging player. But again, he's still effective, and he did help us finish, 46 and 36, which unfortunately was an eighth seed. And he got injured in the play-in, as we all know, so we didn't get to see what Jimmy Butler was capable of doing in the playoffs to see if that formula continued to work, where he kind of load manages during the season and then steps it up in the playoffs. But either way, so it seems like Jimmy Butler wants to stay in Miami. I'm just curious to see what the Miami Heat are going to do. In my opinion, if we were to give Jimmy a new contract, if he did become a free agent and didn't pick up his player option next season, if he had a really good season this season, then if you can negotiate where you can offer him 30 million a year, kind of like what DeMar DeRozan did with the Kings, he was averaging like 26, 27 million or so per season for 3 seasons, and it's like 75, 78 million dollars. If we can get something like that, or maybe a 2-year $70 million deal where he's making 35 versus 55 or $60 million a year at age 36, age 37, I'd be open to something like that, where it's not going to be hindering the Miami Heat's future, as we see they're still doing a blended build with young guys and their veteran stars. So anyway, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.